This video, I am going to do a demonstration of an affirmational grounding exercise. What is an affirmational grounding exercise? Well, as the name implies, it's actually a combination of two different exercises that are very useful in all kinds of therapeutic endeavors. A grounding exercise is, as the name implies, just an exercise to allow the person to feel more grounded. So if a person has a really intense experience with anxiety, stopping and feeling the ground underneath their feet or the chair underneath their body, whatever it may be, can be a way of removing that person from that intense anxiety for a moment, which allows them to kind of feel a sense of relaxation. So, what is an affirmational exercise? An affirmational exercise is so malleable and adaptable, but it's essentially an exercise that allows the person to explore ideas of affirmation. And I use these with my clients in many ways, but particularly I find these helpful when a person is in kind of an exploration phase, where they really have an intention that they're trying to kind of get to know themselves better and get to a certain goal. So for instance, this particular exercise I'm going to do is super simple, super general, and is about trying to explore and identify one's beliefs. And so for the purposes of this exercise, those beliefs can be about anything. Beliefs about friendship, beliefs about my self-worth, beliefs about healthy relationships, but I'm going to keep these very open-ended for the purposes of this. But I find affirmational exercises like this helpful, especially for people who are trying to identify feelings. That sounds so simple, but for a person who has struggled, for instance, with codependency or toxic relationships, it may be really hard for them to identify their own feelings because they're so used to being attuned to the feelings of other people. So these exercises can be helpful to speak to that. So in any case, ideally, I like to say with a particular affirmational exercise, it's helpful to do it over a series of days and at the same time of day each time. So for instance, first thing in the morning or just before a person goes to bed at night, whatever works for them, but to do the same time each day over, say, 7 days. And the open-ended statements at the end of the affirmation exercise will bring up words that come to mind. And again, the ideal thing to do is to take a piece of paper and write down what comes to mind. And so over the course of, say, 7 days, a person has the benefit of actually seeing, wow, I have a pattern. These are some things that are coming up for me that they can use to get to know themselves better, and of course to take to therapy and process with a therapist. So that's just kind of a quick overview. I was actually introduced to affirmational exercises by a coach by the name of Tilly Storm, who is really wonderful, and I want to give her credit for this because these exercises I've just taken them and run with them, but they were new to me when I started, so I like to give her credit for that. So I am going to do a demonstration. I'm going to use the pronoun you, assuming somebody watching this video might want to actually do this along with me. And you can certainly close the video and just listen to my voice. You don't necessarily need to see me. And again, this is something that a person can do that you can do on your own. You don't need a guide. You can simply write down the phrases that you want to say and have that in front of you and read off from that. So, but for the purposes of this, I will guide you. And again, I'm going to start with a bit of a grounding exercise that's really basic, but demonstrates what that looks like. I'm standing. If I'm really doing a grounding exercise with intention, I like to stand. I like to ask my clients to stand, but you don't have to stand. You can sit in a chair or a couch, whatever works for you. But the goal for this, if you are standing, I would encourage you to have bare feet if you can, because that just kind of helps with the sensation. So stand about hip width apart. As with most mind-body exercises, not all of them, but many of them, closing your eyes is helpful just for focus purposes. But if you're standing, there are some people who have balance issues where closing their eyes and standing at the same time isn't a good idea. So you know yourself. If you are not comfortable closing your eyes, you can simply soften your gaze. You can look at the floor in front of you or somewhere out in the distance, or even at the tip of your nose, whatever works for you, but just soften your gaze. I also want to encourage you to be aware of how you're holding your hands. We carry a lot of tension in our fingers and our hands, and so for this exercise, you can just simply let your hands fall at your sides or in your lap if you're sitting, whatever works, but just make sure they're unclenched. And I also encourage you to roll your shoulders back just a tiny bit so that you can just kind of open up your chest. That you can think about that like opening up your heart chakra or just simply opening your lungs so that you can use the full strength of your breath for this little exercise. Finally, one more thing that I find helpful in grounding exercises for a lot of people is to actually place your hands one on top of the other, however you want to do it, in the part of your body that feels like you need support the most. So that might mean over your heart, it might mean over your core, it may mean over your your head. I won't do that for obvious reasons, but so those are your choices for your hand placements. But for me, I'm just going to keep mine loose here. All right, start with your breath. We're going to do, let's say, 3 intentional tension-relieving breaths, and that means inhaling through your nose, exhaling through your mouth, and you can kind of push air out of your mouth when you exhale, just for a little bit extra tension relief, like this. You can get as loud as you want with that exhale, but that's what I'll do for this video. All right. Now, as you breathe, I'd like you to start to focus your attention on, in this case, your feet if you are standing, or your legs if you are sitting. But if you're standing, I'd like you to focus on the ground or the floor underneath your feet. What does that floor feel like against your skin? Is it warm? Is it cool? Are you standing on wood? Are you standing on carpet? Maybe you're even outside standing on grass, but just bring your awareness to the feeling of that surface against your skin. Just simply breathe. Just become aware of that surface. If you're sitting in a chair, same thing. What does that chair feel like underneath your legs? Feel the cushion underneath your skin. Maybe you have the back of the chair against your back, but just simply be aware of that as you breathe. If you're standing, you may want to even envision just a source of energy and strength coming into your body from the floor or the ground underneath you. Just know that you are supported and strong in this moment. I'm going to begin the affirmational part of this exercise, and what I would like you to do is just repeat the phrases silently after I say them, or you can say them out loud if you're comfortable doing so. And I'm going to repeat these phrases several times. And then at the end, I am going to say several open-ended phrases, and I would like you to just speak or think whatever words come to mind that finish those sentences for you. I am here. firm in my beliefs. I am here. I matter. I know myself. I am firm in my beliefs. I am here. I matter. I know myself. I am firm in my beliefs. I believe. I believe. I believe. I believe. Now I encourage you to write down the things that came to mind and just try this again and see if it helps you. Like I said, it might help you to try this over a period of days, and you can change those phrases to whatever phrases make sense for you and whatever affirmations you may need in your given moment.